So, you want to own a gas station chain, buy the lots, install the pumps, light up the canopies, watch the cars pull in. Sounds like the most boring business on earth. The customers come whether you advertise or not. The product is regulated. The price is posted on a sign 60 feet tall. The competition is whoever opened the corner across the street. But here's the strange part. Gas stations are one of the only businesses in the world where the headline product is almost worthless to the owner. By the end of this video, you'll know how a gas station chain actually makes money, why the fuel itself is the loss leader, why the real margin lives inside the building, and why the smartest operators in the industry are quietly buying up every independent station they can find. If you want to follow the numbers all the way through, hit subscribe before you forget. It costs nothing, and it keeps videos like this one coming. Gas stations come in 3 sizes, and they're 3 completely different businesses. A small single-location independent station in rural America or a secondary town in Europe costs around $500,000 to $1,200,000 to buy or build. For that money, you get a small lot, 4 to 6 fuel dispensers, a single canopy, an underground tank system, and a convenience store of around 1,000 to 1,500 square feet. Most of these places are owned by first-generation immigrant families or local operators who treat them as owner-operator businesses. Profit is thin. Hours are long. The owner works the register because there is nobody else to work the register at 3 in the morning. A modern branded station with a full convenience store is a different animal. Think the kind of station you've pulled into 1,000 times without thinking about it. A Shell, a BP, a Circle K, a 7-Eleven, a Wawa, a Sheetz. 8 to 16 dispensers under a large canopy, a 3,000 to 6,000 square foot store inside, a kitchen serving fresh food, restrooms, sometimes a car wash on the side. The build-out cost runs $2.5 million to $6 million per location, including land, construction, underground storage tanks, point-of-sale systems, and opening inventory. And then there's the top of the pyramid, the regional and national chains. Couche-Tard, the Canadian parent company of Circle K, operates over 14,000 convenience stores across more than 20 countries and is valued at over $60 billion on the Toronto Stock Exchange. 7 & I Holdings, the Japanese parent of 7-Eleven, operates over 80,000 locations globally. EG Group, founded by 2 brothers in the United Kingdom in 2001, grew through acquisitions to operate over 6,000 sites across multiple continents. These are not gas stations anymore. They are global retail and real estate platforms with fuel pumps attached. But the purchase price is just the start. 2 more costs nobody warns you about. The first is the regulatory and environmental compliance burden, which in the gas station world is enormous. Underground storage tanks must meet strict federal and state regulations on leak detection, cathodic protection, and spill containment. The Environmental Protection Agency in the United States requires monthly monitoring, annual testing, and detailed record keeping. A single leaking tank can trigger a cleanup operation costing $200,000 to over $1 million, and the operator is personally liable. Most states require gas station operators to maintain financial assurance, either through insurance or a state trust fund, covering at least $1 million per incident. When tanks reach the end of their 30-year life, replacement costs run $150,000 to $400,000 per tank, with most stations operating 3 to 5 tanks. The second cost is the fuel supply contract. When you sign with a major brand like Shell, BP, ExxonMobil, or Chevron, you are not just buying the right to fly the flag on the canopy. You are signing a supply agreement that locks you into buying all of your fuel from that brand at prices set by the brand, plus a brand fee, plus credit card processing fees for the brand's loyalty program. The typical branded supply agreement runs 10 to 15 years and includes minimum gallonage requirements, mandatory equipment upgrades, and brand image standards that require periodic repainting, signage replacement, and canopy refurbishment at the operator's expense. Most operators discover that the branded fuel costs them 3 to 7 cents more per gallon than unbranded fuel from a regional distributor. The brand argues that loyalty traffic justifies the premium. The numbers, for many operators, do not agree. Then there's the consolidation pressure. Couche-Tard, EG Group, Sunoco, Casey's General Stores, and a handful of private equity-backed groups have been quietly buying independent gas stations across North America and Europe for the last 2 decades. They typically pay 4 to 7 times annual cash flow for a profitable independent station, replace the signage with their own brand, centralize purchasing, and absorb the location into a regional cluster. The customer thinks they're pulling into the same station that's been on that corner for 30 years. The customer is buying gas from a publicly traded multinational headquartered in Quebec or London. Even the smallest gas station operator in the smallest town understands the same thing the largest chains do. A gas station is a piece of high-traffic real estate that prints recurring local demand, controls the timing of every transaction, and captures a customer who is already stopped, already standing, and already looking for a reason to buy something else. That's why the consolidators keep buying, the independents keep selling, and the customer almost never notices the change. So you've got the station, you've got the pumps, you've got the canopy, the store, the tanks, the staff, the cars are pulling in. Now we get to the question that actually matters. Where does the money come from? The obvious answer is the gasoline, the pump price on the sign, the receipt the driver tears off after filling up, the diesel for the trucks at the back of the lot. And all of that is true, but the obvious answer is also the wrong answer. The fuel is not the business. The fuel is the bait. The actual business is sitting on the back wall of the convenience store in the form of a $2 bottle of water that costs the operator 20 cents. Every gas station chain on earth earns money in 2 completely different categories, and the split is not what you'd guess. The industry calls them fuel margin and inside sales. Fuel margin is what the station keeps on every gallon of gasoline or diesel sold through the pumps. Inside sales is everything that happens inside the convenience store. Drinks, snacks, cigarettes, lottery tickets, hot food, coffee, car wash tickets, motor oil, phone chargers. At a typical branded station, fuel volume accounts for around 70% of total revenue, but only 30 to 40% of gross profit. Inside sales accounts for around 30% of revenue, but 60 to 70% of gross profit. The pumps move the cars. The store moves the money. Easiest way to picture it. Imagine a driver pulls in and buys 15 gallons of regular gasoline at $3.49 per gallon. The total bill is $52.35. Of that, around $47 to $48 goes straight back to the fuel supplier and the taxes. The station's gross margin on that fuel sale is around $4 to $5, before credit card processing fees of around 1.5 to 2% on the whole transaction, which eats another 75 cents to $1. The station nets about $3.50 on a $52 fuel transaction. That's a gross margin of around 6 to 7% before any operating costs. Now, the same driver walks inside. They buy a 20-ounce bottle of soda for $2.49, a bag of chips for $2.99, and a pack of gum for $1.49. Total inside spend, $6.97. The cost of those 3 items to the station is around $2. The gross margin on that $6.97 purchase is roughly $5. The station makes more profit from 1 trip inside the store than from 15 gallons of gasoline. Now multiply that by 2,000 fill-ups a week. The numbers stop being theoretical. A modern branded gas station with a strong convenience store generates around $3.5 million to $5 million in annual revenue. Around $2.5 million to $3.5 million of that comes from fuel. The other $1 to $1.5 million comes from inside sales. But the gross profit split is reversed. Fuel might generate $150,000 to $250,000 in gross margin per year. Inside sales generates $400,000 to $700,000 in gross margin per year. A well-run convenience store with a fresh food program can push inside gross margins above 40%. The pumps subsidize the building. The building pays the bills. Then there's the highest margin product of all, hot food and proprietary coffee. Wawa, the regional chain across the mid-Atlantic United States, generates over 30% of its inside sales from prepared food and built its entire brand around hoagies and coffee rather than fuel. Sheetz, its Pennsylvania-based competitor, did the same with made-to-order sandwiches. Casey's General Stores, the third largest convenience chain in America, is now the fifth largest pizza seller in the country. A slice of pizza costs the operator around 80 cents in food cost and sells for $3. A large coffee costs the operator 15 cents and sells for $2.29. The fuel pumps brought the car in. The coffee paid the rent. And here's the part that breaks people's brains. The longer you keep the driver inside the building, the more the math works. The industry calls it the conversion rate. The conversion rate is the product. Every customer who pumps fuel and does not walk inside is a missed opportunity. Industry data shows that the average branded station converts around 30 to 35% of fuel customers into inside customers. Wawa converts over 60%. Sheetz converts over 65%. The difference is not the gasoline is identical. The difference is the store, the fresh food, the clean restrooms, the coffee bar, the reason to walk 20 steps from the pump to the door. So, now look at the architecture. Pull into any modern gas station designed in the last 15 years. Notice anything? The fuel pumps are positioned so the driver, when they finish fueling, is facing the entrance to the store. The most visible product through the window is usually the coffee station or the hot food counter. The entrance leads directly past the cold drink coolers, which are the highest volume impulse purchase in the building. The cigarettes and lottery tickets are behind the counter, which forces every customer to speak to the cashier and creates the opportunity for an upsell. The restrooms are at the back of the store, which means the customer walks past every aisle on the way in and on the way out. The industry has a term for it: forced traffic flow. Every square foot of the building exists to convert a fuel customer into an inside customer. The psychology of the customer is even sharper than the architecture. A driver who has just stopped for fuel is in a specific state. They are already out of the car. They have already broken the inertia of driving. They are likely thirsty, hungry, or bored. They have a few minutes to kill while the tank fills. They have a credit card already in their hand. The decision to walk inside is a small one, and once inside, the decision to buy something is even smaller. The industry knows exactly what that customer will spend on average and breaks it down by time of day of week, and weather pattern. Morning customers buy coffee and breakfast sandwiches. Lunchtime customers buy hot food and drinks. Evening customers buy snacks, beer, wear aloud, and lottery tickets. The store stocks accordingly, and at the very top of this pyramid sits the loyalty program. Modern chains like Circle K, 7-Eleven, BPME, and Shell run digital loyalty platforms that track every transaction the customer makes, link it to fuel purchases, and offer targeted discounts on specific products. The customer thinks they're saving 5 cents per gallon. The chain is collecting transaction data, increasing inside conversion rates by 10 to 15 percentage points, and locking the customer into the brand across hundreds or thousands of locations. The loyalty program is not a discount. The loyalty program is a customer ownership tool. So here's the whole revenue model in one sentence. Fuel volume multiplied by inside conversion, multiplied by basket size, multiplied by visit frequency. And every single decision in the building, from the canopy lighting to the cooler placement to the food menu, exists to maximize one of those four numbers. The fuel is bait, the store is the trap, the driver is the product, and the gasoline, the thing most people think the business is built on, is the cover charge that gets paid before the real transaction begins. So, with all this guaranteed traffic, all this captive convenience demand, all this engineered conversion, why do gas station operators ever lose money? The short answer is the fuel itself. Out of every dollar of gas station revenue, an enormous portion is gone before the operator sees anything. A typical branded gas station runs on a net margin of 3 to 6% across the whole business, which sounds small until you realize how much volume flows through the building. So out of $4 million in annual revenue, the operator keeps around $150,000 to $240,000. Where does the rest go? About a quarter disappears into staff costs. A modern station with a fresh food program needs cashiers around the clock, a store manager, an assistant manager, food preparation staff during peak hours, and overnight coverage for 24-hour locations. Wages have climbed sharply across most American states, and a station that needs 5 employees on shift during the morning rush is paying $80,000 to $120,000 a year in labor for that shift window alone. Another large chunk goes to credit card processing fees, which on fuel sales of $2.5 million a year alone consume $35,000 to $50,000 off the top, paid to Visa, MasterCard, and the processor. Then there's the stuff most people never think about. The fuel itself swings in wholesale price every single day. A station that locks in its retail pump price for the day to stay competitive with the corner across the street can see its margin per gallon swing from 10 cents one day to 2 cents the next when wholesale prices spike. A single bad week of fuel volatility can wipe out a month of inside sales profit. Underground tank monitoring and inspection costs, canopy lighting and electrical bills that run thousands of dollars a month because the lights are on 24 hours a day. Refrigeration for the cold drink coolers, the food cases, and the freezer. Refrigeration alone at a busy station consumes more electricity than the rest of the building combined. And then there are the lawsuits. Slip and fall accidents in wet forecourts after a rainstorm. Drive-aways where a customer fills up and leaves without paying. Robbery at overnight hours. Environmental contamination claims when a tank shows even a trace leak in monitoring. The liability insurance climbs every year, and the deductibles climb with it. The guaranteed top line is real. Everything below it is a fistfight. That fistfight is where most gas station operators lose, and it has a small set of repeat patterns. Gas station chains can fail for a lot of reasons, but two mistakes show up over and over again. Mistake 1. Overpaying for stations during a fuel margin peak. When fuel margins are unusually wide, like the period from 2020 to 2022, when the average margin per gallon in America climbed above 40 cents, station valuations spike. Operators borrow heavily to buy at 6 to 8 times annual cash flow, assuming the fat margins will continue. When fuel margins reverted to historical norms of 15 to 25 cents per gallon, those buyers found themselves carrying debt service their stations could no longer cover. EG Group, the rapidly expanded chain that bought up thousands of stations across the United States and Europe through aggressive debt-funded acquisitions during the late 2010s and early 2020s, was forced to refinance over $10 billion in debt in 2023 after fuel margins normalized and the math stopped working. Don't buy a gas station on the assumption that fuel margins will stay wide. They never do for long. Mistake 2. Wrong location for the model. This one has killed a lot of stations. A gas station on a high-traffic suburban corner with 5,000 cars passing per day is a different business from a gas station on a struggling rural highway with 500 cars passing per day, even though the buildings look identical. Independent operators have bought rural stations at attractive prices, only to discover that the fuel volume cannot support the fixed costs and the inside sales cannot scale because the customer base is too small. Stations in declining commercial corridors, near closing factories, or in towns losing population have closed in the thousands across the American Midwest and rural Europe over the last decade. Many of those operators failed to anticipate the shift to electric vehicles, which now make up over 8% of new car sales in the United States and over 20% in parts of Europe, slowly eroding fuel volume in suburban markets that once seemed permanent. Step back for a second. The economics of this industry are paradoxical. A gas station has one of the most reliable customer flows in business. Drivers must refuel. The decision to stop is geographic, not preferential. The customer is captive once they pull onto the forecourt. And yet, independent station operators are selling out to consolidators at the highest rate in the industry's history. Why? Because the math only works at scale and over decades. Every modern station takes 10 to 15 years to pay back its construction. The fuel margin is volatile. The environmental liability is permanent, which means everything outside the math has to be perfect. Your location, your supply contract, your inside store program, your timing relative to the electric vehicle transition. Time to pull it all together and answer the actual question. How much money do you make if you do this right? 2 scenarios, real numbers. Scenario 1. A single independent gas station in a small town. $800,000 to buy. Annual revenue around $2,200,000. After fuel costs, inside cost of goods, labor, rent, utilities, credit card fees, and every other cost, your real take-home is around $80,000 to $140,000 a year. assuming you work the register yourself during peak shifts to keep labor down. Payback 6 to 10 years. Not glamorous, recession resistant. The most exhausting small business with the word station in it. Scenario 2. A regional chain of 40 stations across 2 states. $150 million in total invested capital, built up over 15 to 20 years through a mix of acquisition and ground-up development. Combined annual revenue around $160 million. And here's a fun fact most people miss. Only around 30% of profit comes from the fuel. The other 70% comes from inside sales, car wash revenue, loyalty program data monetization, and the appreciation of the underlying real estate. A modern gas station chain is barely a fuel retailer. It's a convenience retailer that uses fuel as the loss leader to pull customers in. Net profit after everything, around $6 to $10 million a year. Add another $2 to $3 million if the real estate is owned, rather than leased. Payback, 12 to 18 years on the operating business. The land itself often appreciates faster than the business returns capital. And if you survive long enough, you become something specific. Alain Bouchard founded Couche-Tard in Quebec in 1980 with a single convenience store and built it through decades of acquisitions into the parent company of Circle K, now operating over 14,000 stores worldwide and valued at over $60 billion on the Toronto Stock Exchange. The Haslam family founded Pilot Travel Centers in 1958 and grew it into the largest truck stop chain in North America before selling a majority stake to Berkshire Hathaway in 2017 for over $28 billion. The ones who built generational wealth in this industry did it by understanding that the gas station is a retail and real estate business that happens to sell fuel, not the other way around. So if you do decide to own a gas station chain, just remember the most important rule of this business. The pumps are the bait. The store is the trap. The land underneath is the asset. Make sure you're not buying a fuel retailer. You're buying a corner lot that happens to dispense gasoline.